Hello everyone, welcome back to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy. Tonight we've got Goblin Charbelcher versus Dak Loam Pile. On the left we have Kelvin piloting his Goblin Charbelcher list. This deck, very much like Oops All Spells, is a all-in turn 1 strategy that is going to use massive mana ramp in order to pay off with either Empty the Warrens to get 1,000 goblins onto the battlefield to be able to attack over the next turn or two to win the game, or it uses Goblin Charbelcher, which reveals cards off the top of your deck until you hit a land, and then it deals that many cards that you revealed to your opponent's face. And I think it's doubled if it's a mountain. Well, it turns out that there's only one land in the deck that's not a modal face card, and that's a Taiga, which happens to be a mountain, so almost always you're going to be hitting them for over their life total if you're activating that Goblin Charbelcher. Kelvin's fun of in this deck is the 4 Leyline of Anticipation that he runs in his sideboard because he wants to win on your turn. And on the right you have Ben playing his Dak Loam Pile. Now this is basically Maverick. It's got all of the Maverick-y things like a Knight of the Reliquary. This one's got 4 Chalice of the Void. He's also going for Mox Diamonds because he is playing 4 colors. It's got the Green Sun Zenith, but of course the 2 cards that the deck is named for, Life from the Loam, makes an appearance at 2 copies in the deck, and Dak Faden. This is mostly because Dak Faden is a very fun planeswalker to play. Also combos very well with the Hull Breacher, saying that +2 on you, you discard 2 cards and I get 2 treasures, so that's always fun. But this deck plays as a mid-range grindfest, trying to get things into play early, maybe like a Chalice of the Void on 0 or 1, depending on the game state, and then maybe slap in a Sylvan Library into play, and then just playing things that are going to hopefully win you the game over several turns. Endurance, either Sworn Candidates to slow down those combo players, like the Charbelcher player, and then winning with a Knight of the Reliquary, or maybe even an Uro if you can get it into play. All right, enough about those. Let's get into the games. All right, here we go. We've got Kelvin on the play here, exactly where he wants to be. No interaction unless it's a Force of Will. Just gets to do his entire combo uninterrupted. We see the Lotus Petal, sack for red, into Rite of Flame, which is going to get him a couple of Desperate Rituals, increasing his mana by a substantial amount. Into a Seething Song, we have even more red mana, which is going to get a Burning Wish. And that's going to cast and Empty the Warrens. We're going to count up all of these spells. I believe that's 10. Oh no, that's 7. So that is 14 goblins on turn 1 for Kelvin. Now this is an extremely difficult position for Ben to be in. I am not sure he can come back from that. In fact, he cannot. So we are on to game 2 just that fast. Kelvin gets his favorite pet card into play, the Leyline of Anticipation, hoping that he's going to win on Ben's first turn. We see Ben drop a Chalice of a Chalice on 0 into play. It looks like Kelvin does not have a Lotus Petal in response. Storm count is 1. Ben passes it back. Kelvin decides to go off a little bit here. We have a Tinderwall in play off of an Elvish Spirit Guide, which is going to be able to sacrifice for 2 red mana, which is going to get the Desperate Ritual, which is going to be up to 3 red mana. A Seething Song, taking 3, turning it into 5. Into a Burning Wish, which I believe is going to get a Galvanic Relay. Indeed it is. So we're going to exile the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Top 5 cards off of the top of the library. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, because the Chalice of the Void got cast. So now we're taking a look here. Looks like there might be a land grant there. Definitely a Burning Wish. Goblin, or Empty the Warrens. Yeah, there's the land grant getting cast. Finding that Taiga. Getting that into play. Here's land grant for you. Getting to reveal that hand so that you can go and find any land in your deck. And we're finally going to Kelvin's turn. His first turn. All right, 2 mana is going to get a Burning Wish. is going to get Echo of Eons to hand. So I think maybe Kelvin has decided that he can't really do anything, but if he draws into a Lion's Eye Diamond, then then he can kind of reset the game. And we see from Ben an Expedition map and off of a tropical island. Now, this game does get a little, what's the right word? Tedious. 2 mana gets a Sylvan Library. I think I already sped up the 11 turns later. I missed it on the record here. So they kind of sat there and didn't really do anything for a while. And so I took out a bunch of dead turns. And so here we are kind of back in the meat of the action. Seeing Ben using that Sylvan Library gets the Endurance into play. I don't think he even tucked Kelvin's graveyard because he doesn't really have any reaction with his graveyard. And he just doesn't want to put more gas back into his deck. We see an Uro being cast, getting to draw a card. Passes the turn. Kelvin checking his hand. Kind of set up with a lot of cards now. Kelvin might be ready to go back off. Decides to pass the turn. Not quite there yet. Ben doing his absolute best here to just make sure that he's not going to get blown out. Oh, that's a Fairy Mastermind. This is a new one from Ben. He's had it in the deck for a while. It's just never come up on the actual list. Oh, this one doesn't even have it. I'm going off of an old list of Ben's. He'll probably be very mad at me because he is fastidious about sending me the new list that he has every week. Thank you, Ben. We're seeing a Force of Vigor, getting rid of the 2 Ley Line of Anticipation. Kelvin trying to get his Lotus Petal into play. Ben points to the Chalice of the Void, says, "This is on 0." And Kelvin goes, "Ah, yeah, all right." And so Kelvin a little bit set back here. Bring up Fairy Mastermind real quick. So Fairy Mastermind, that new card. Fashioned after Utah. Flash flying. Whenever an opponent draws their second card, you get to draw a card. You can force everybody to draw cards. Crashing in for 5. Bringing Kelvin down to 7. So we got 2 more turns here. And a Chalice on 2 is going to shut down Burning Wish. And it's also going to shut down Desperate Ritual, which is kind of a big deal. And a Manamorphose. And so Kelvin just passes the turn, says, I can't, or not passes the turn, but concedes the game. So this is game 3. We're seeing Kelvin go off here. A lot of mana ramp into a Manamorphose, which is going to draw him a card. And change up his mana a little bit. He's got 1 green floating and some amount of red floating. There's a Charbelcher. And I don't think he had enough mana to activate it. So Ben slaps down the Force of Vigor, which is going to blow it up. Oh, and this is the 11 turns later. So nothing happens for a very long time in this 3rd game. So I took out all those extra turns. We have a Chalice on 0 now. 2 Shatterskull Smashings into play that are lands. Shatterskull, the Hammered Pass. And we're seeing a bunch of red mana getting made. 2 Desperate Ritual, Seething Song into a Manamorphose. And a Hull Breacher is going to stop that draw from the Manamorphose. It is still going to be able to filter that land. And it is going to increase the storm count. So as long as Kelvin wasn't hoping to draw off of that, and it looks like he has pivoted. He already had a Burning Wish in hand. Just goes for the Empty the Warrens, making 2 goblins per spell cast. I believe that's another 14 goblins. Counting it up. And of course we can't see the die, but that's okay. Getting that fun treasure token. The colorless energy from the Pokemon trading card game. Playing a land. Ben's staring down a lot of damage here. He's got 1 blocker in play. Not amazing. That Manamorphose should eventually go to the graveyard. There it goes. 2 mana. Gets a Collector Oof in play. It's a good thing that Ben used that treasure to cast the Oof, because it would have not been usable had he put the Oof into play and not used it. Ooh, he passes it back, meaning that he doesn't really have any other interaction with these goblins. So Kelvin's best bet here is he just turns it sideways. Oh, he had an Endurance. So he uses the fetch land to take 1 to play the Endurance. Does 3 blocks, and I think takes 13 damage here. We're seeing a Past in Flames. What is that card that you have flipped over, Kelvin? Is this Cave In? No, it's not. It's not Echo, not Empty. Oh, it's Goblin Warstrike. Okay, so Goblin Warstrike deals damage equal to the number of goblins you control to target player. Okay, well, Kelvin's setting up his win here, making sure that he's basically going to deal double damage next turn. So probably cast this before you attack. And, I mean, that's game. So Ben trying to decide what the best course of action is here. He has that Blast Zone, but unfortunately it does come in with a counter. Ooh, Dak Faden. It's going to force him to discard 2 cards, and then he gets 2 treasures. So that is going to get rid of the Goblin Warstrike. But I think he's still going to die to the combat damage the next turn. So that's game. Kelvin takes it 2-1. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope that you enjoyed that back and forth. The combo deck just pretty much always having the advantage over a mid-range deck. It just happens. And Goblin Charbelcher is really, really good about just kind of playing its own game of solitaire and running over the opponent in a couple turns. Thanks as always to Spellhold Games and Collector Legion for allowing us to record in their play space. If you are interested in either of these deck lists, they are in the description of the video you're watching right now, and the visual deck list will be up on our Instagram at some point in time, hopefully while you're watching this video. And that's going to be it for this one. As always, I am Eugene, and this is Tuesday Night Legacy. We'll see you next time.